All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the camera scanning guide, the essential equipment required. If you've got boxes of vintage prints, maybe some fading slides or fragile negatives just sitting around in a closet somewhere, you might be wondering, how on earth do I safely bring these into the digital age? Well, today is your lucky day because we're going to lay out the absolute ultimate gear blueprint for museum-grade photo digitization. We are breaking down the exact professional gear you need to build your very own high-quality camera scanning setup right at home.
But before we get into all the fun gear, okay, let's dive into this. We really have to ask a super important question. Is that agonizingly slow flatbed scanner you've probably had for years really still the best tool for saving your family history? Now, for the longest time, flatbed scanners were kind of the default choice for digitizing photos, right? But as you'll see today, professional archivists and photographers completely agree that we've moved way beyond the limitations of those old clunky flatbeds.
I mean, when you compare the two methods side by side, the differences are honestly staggering. Flatbed scanning, it can be incredibly tedious. It's so time-consuming, you literally spend hours cropping individual photos from just a single scan, and it really struggles to give you decent resolution for larger formats. But on the flip side, camera scanning gives you superior speed. Why? Because you're capturing the image instantly. It delivers this absolutely breathtaking detail that scanners simply cannot match, and it gives you a real-time workflow where you can organize and edit as you go. So it's not just way faster, it is a vastly more enjoyable process overall.
So, to achieve these professional results, you obviously need the right tools. We're going to build your ultimate preservation machine piece by piece today. First up, mirrorless cameras and pixel shift technology. Second, the 60mm macro lens. Third, the rock-solid copy stand. And finally, lighting and a tethered workflow.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, mirrorless and pixel shift technology, the camera core. Let's look at the first component of what we're going to call the essential dynamic duo, the digital camera itself. Specifically, we're talking about a mirrorless digital camera. Now, while older DSLRs can work, mirrorless systems have some really distinct advantages for archival work. Mostly, it's because they lack that mechanical mirror inside that causes internal vibrations. And believe me, when you're digitizing tiny, fragile details, vibration is absolutely your worst enemy.
But the real high-resolution magic found in a lot of modern mirrorless cameras is something called pixel shift technology. This is a total game changer. So here's how it works. The camera actually shifts its internal sensor by just half a pixel or a full pixel and takes multiple rapid exposures, sometimes 8 or even 16 shots in a row. Then it stitches them all together into one massive file. By doing this, it completely eliminates the guesswork of standard camera sensors, meaning every single microscopic spot on your vintage photo is captured with true red, green, and blue data. It gets rid of false colors and captures intricate details that regular single-shot scanning just totally misses.
To really give you an idea of the sheer power of this tech, just look at this number, 240. That represents the 240 megapixels that some cameras, like the Sony a7R IV or V, can actually achieve when they're using pixel shift. I mean, even cameras like the Lumix S1R can hit 187 megapixels. That is huge. This completely outperforms standard consumer flatbed scanners, making it absolutely perfect for digitizing large format film, fine art, or those really oversized vintage prints where you just need maximum croppability and detail.
Okay, let's move to and see how this builds with Section 2, the 60mm macro lens, or precision optics. Because the camera body, well, that's really only half of the equation. Having a 240 megapixel sensor is completely useless if the glass attached to the front of it isn't sharp enough. So the second part of our dynamic duo here is the lens.
For this kind of work, you absolutely must use a macro lens. Think of a macro lens not just as a standard camera part, but honestly, it's more like a specialized, super precision magnifying glass. It's meticulously engineered to photograph very small subjects at incredibly close distances with practically zero distortion. A high-quality macro lens is the piece of the puzzle that actually allows you to capture the authentic textures, the fine silvering on old prints, and the actual raw film grain of the original media, without bowing or warping the edges of your precious photograph.
And when you're selecting that macro lens, there is a golden rule you have to follow: 60 millimeters. Specifically, getting a minimum of a 60mm lens that's capable of a 1:1 magnification ratio is basically non-negotiable. Why? Well, because a shorter lens, let's say a 30mm, forces you to physically position the camera so uncomfortably close to the print or negative that you actually end up blocking your own light and casting annoying shadows right over the image. A 60mm or longer lens gives you what we call the required working distance so you can properly illuminate your media while completely avoiding weird perspective distortion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Section 3, the rock-solid copy stand, giving us mechanical stability. We're moving away from the camera gear itself for a second and focusing on the foundation. You could have the ultimate camera and the most perfect lens in the world, but if they vibrate even a fraction of a millimeter, your beautiful high-resolution scan is totally ruined. And that brings us to the copy stand. Now, I know you might be tempted to just angle a standard tripod over a kitchen table and call it a day, but a dedicated copy stand is vastly superior. It provides absolutely crucial mechanical stability and vibration dampening, but more importantly, it ensures your camera remains perfectly parallel to the baseboard at exactly 90 degrees. Even a tiny 1-degree tilt will leave one side of your digitized photo looking blurry. A copy stand gives you that sweet repeatability. You set it up exactly once, and your workspace is permanently aligned, completely removing the headache and friction of setting up every time you want to scan. The catch is professional copy stands can be incredibly expensive, easily ranging from $280 to well over $550. But here's the good news. You do not need a massive professional studio budget for this. You can actually build a DIY pipe and flange rig using basic hardware store parts for about $65. And because it uses thick steel pipe, it actually offers high stability that rivals or even beats those expensive aluminum retail stands. Pair that setup with a small mirror placed flat on the baseboard. It's a neat little trick to ensure your lens reflection is perfectly centered, and boom, you have a precision-leveled, museum-quality foundation on a serious budget.
All right, Section 4, Lighting and a Tethered Workflow, your command center. We are now heading into the final phase of building our preservation machine, controlling your lighting environment and setting up your digital command center.
When it comes to lighting up your old prints and negatives, just grabbing any old desk lamp is definitely not going to cut it. You absolutely need LED lights with a color rendering index, or CRI, of 95 or higher. This number is vital, folks. A CRI of 95 plus guarantees exact, faithful color reproduction. It ensures that the really subtle sepia tones or the highly specific color dyes of your vintage photos are preserved exactly as they look in real life. No weird color shifts.
And this brilliantly illustrates how lighting integrates directly with digitizing film and negatives. Let's look at two popular film holders that attach right to your macro lens. The classic Nikon ES2 has an open design, which is okay, but it makes it pretty prone to picking up stray room flare. On the other hand, the Valois EZ35, while it is slightly more expensive, uses an enclosed design with a fantastic built-in CRI 95 plus LED light. It completely blocks out ambient room light and uses this really clever sprocket-fed track that makes scanning strips of 35mm film incredibly fast and consistent. So to tie all of this amazing gear together, we use what's called a tethered workflow. This is where you simply connect a USB cable straight from your camera directly into your laptop. By doing this, you get to bypass that tiny, inadequate little screen on the back of the camera, and you bypass the SD card entirely. You can literally trigger the camera remotely right from your laptop keyboard, which completely prevents any camera shake, and the image saves straight to your hard drive. Most importantly, you can review the capture instantly on a big computer screen at 100% zoom. You check for dust, check the focus, check your lighting, all before moving on to the very next photo. It truly is the ultimate digital command center. So the crucial point here is that you now have the definitive blueprint. Here is your master checklist for museum-grade photo digitization. You need a mirrorless camera equipped with pixel shift technology for that massive resolution. A 1:1 macro lens that is at least 60 millimeters, so we don't get any distortion. A dedicated, perfectly leveled copy stand. Diffused LED lighting rated at 95 plus CRI. And finally, some polarizing filters just to cut through the annoying glare of those glossy vintage prints. With this specific setup, you are no longer just scanning. You are precisely archiving like a total pro. I really want to leave you with this powerful sentiment from the material we reviewed today. Your family's history is fading. Let's save it together. You now have the exact blueprint and the knowledge of the professional gear required to protect those invaluable memories before they degrade any further. The tools are accessible, the workflow is highly efficient, and the results? They will literally last for generations. So the only question left to ask yourself right now is, what piece of your family history are you going to digitize first? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy archiving.